Because 13 is an unlucky number. But out here, so are 1 through 12. Because these are Jason's woods. And nobody leaves them alive.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 1982 classic slasher sequel, Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D. We have Steve Miner that returns to direct this after directing the second one, and we have, starring in the film, Dana Kimmel, Tracy Savage, Richard Brooker as Jason, Terry Ballard, Gloria Charles, Anne Gabis, and David Katims. Right. Okay, now this film, unlike the last one that was set 5 years after the events in the first film, this is set the day after the events in Part 2. So we get another group of friends heading out to the woods for a relaxing time. And of course, Jason is still running rampant and decapitating people at will. So, you know, they've got to try and survive. Of course they do. Right. What are my thoughts on Friday the 13th, Part 3? Well, obviously the big selling point of this film at the time was the 3D aspect. Now, obviously, I didn't watch this in 3D, but it's very much like when you watch one of these films from the 80s, like Jaws 3D and stuff, where 3D was a thing. You can tell a mile away, you know, what was meant to be 3D in the film, and it doesn't translate well when you're watching a film like this that isn't in 3D. So you've got to kind of try and put that stuff to one side, sort of thing, because it's like, you know, you'll get someone holding an eye and then they'll like turn it to the camera and they're like almost like shoving it in your face, and you know that would have been a 3D effect, and it happens many times in this film. It just looks a bit odd and a bit daft when it's not 3D. So you've got that, really, the selling point there of 3D at the time. I don't know if there's a way to watch this in 3D these days. I suspect so. If you got one of, 3D tellies were a thing a few years ago. I don't know if they still are, but either way, I didn't watch this in 3D. Now, while I did quite like the look of this film and the feel of this film, you know, it had a sense of quality to it again, very much like the second one, which I liked. I actually like this one least of the lot so far. Now, I'm not here to say that this is a bad film. I don't think it's a bad film. It's actually quite enjoyable. The kills and stuff are quite enjoyable, but there's a few things that just don't really work for me in this thing. There's like a shift in tone in regards to, there's like a more comedic tone here and there that it just felt a bit off, but obviously it's a direction that the franchise goes in a little bit. This is the film, of course, where we get to see Jason wear the iconic hockey mask for the first time. However, it was a bit of a damp squid because the guy that played Jason in this film, Richard Brooker, I think he was some kind of athlete or something, and he didn't act like Jason. He didn't feel like Jason. You know, he was far too agile. I mean, there's a scene where he takes somebody down where he kind of dodges a blow and then just knocks this guy to the ground. I mean, the reflexes of a cat. This is Jason we're talking about. And he didn't look big enough, and he was just too nimble for me. He moved far too fast for me, and you know, it doesn't explain, or even make an attempt to explain, really, because at the end of the last film, I'm sure he did, when you got to see his face, he had hair, and if this is set the day after the events of the last film, you know, has his hair just fallen out? You know, it doesn't make any attempt to explain any of that. And he was almost decapitated at the end of the last film. He got his machete like shoved in his neck, sort of thing. You know, and it's like, there's not even a hint of that wound really in this film. There's no explanation as to how he kind of, you know, survived the events of the last film, sort of thing, and got up and decided to like chop a few more people up. Again, you know, you can forgive this franchise as it goes forward because they present Jason as some kind of unstoppable supernatural monster. But it didn't feel like, certainly in the second one and this one to a large degree, it didn't feel like that's how he was being presented. Yes, he had superhuman strength and stuff, and other bits and pieces that were going off here that suggested he was unkillable here and there. But I don't know. It felt a bit odd tonally to me, and then the ending that kind of emulated the events in the first film at the end didn't really work to me. It was kind of role reversal. And again, spoilers. Not that I should worry about a film that was from 1982. You know, at the end of the first Friday the 13th, Jason came out of the water, and at the end of this one, it's Jason's mum that comes out of the water. Again, you're not sure if that's real or if it's being imagined, sort of thing. But if it was real, how's that happened? She was ahead in the last film, so it kind of leaves you with too many questions, and it feels a bit silly trying to answer them because you don't really want to be thinking about these sort of things watching a Friday the 13th film, if you know what I mean. There are definitely some memorable moments in this film. Some of the kills are very, very memorable. I wasn't keen on some of the comedic shifts here. A lot of the characters were kind of unmemorable as well here. But I liked the addition of some characters that you were quite looking forward to them getting, you know, sliced and diced, which was, you know, a good addition to the film as well. I just can't. I'm struggling now to get to the point where I'm understanding how anybody is allowed within a 20-mile radius of this area. You know, how they've not evacuated the whole area at this point and said, right, okay, there's a crazed killer, we think we've got him, but we probably haven't. You need to move out. It just doesn't make a lot of sense here. You know, there's been countless people, you know, sliced and diced over the last couple of films, and we're still going here, and nobody seems to be being assertive about it. But yeah, definitely some inventive kills going on here. I think my favourite one, because it just looks so hokey, was when Jason kind of squashes somebody's head and the eye pops out, obviously for the 3D effect that we don't get here, but it is still quite amusing. So yeah, again, I don't think this is a bad film. I just think it's the weakest of the three I've watched so far for a few of the reasons that I've mentioned. The 3D stuff doesn't work well anymore, obviously, and doesn't translate to a film you're watching that isn't 3D. Jason, you know, it didn't feel like Jason. He was far too nimble for me, far too agile and far too slim. And he was just too fast. It didn't feel like a Jason to me. Certainly the Jason that we all kind of come to know over the franchise. And even in the last film, he wasn't as agile as this, but not by any stretch from what I can remember. But there are some fun elements here, and it carries on the tradition of the first two films. So I am still looking forward to checking out the next one. Let me know in the comments what your favourite Friday the 13th film is. What have I got to look forward to? Is there any real, you know, stinkers in the franchise that are really, really poor that I shouldn't be looking forward to? Let me know in the comments. And of course, I will be back with plenty more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.